Now what I'm cooking for today is we're going to do some broiled salmon. Now there's different cuts of salmon. If you're really on a budget, there's there's a little package of salmon that you can get in your frozen case, and it's actually like anywhere from $1 to $1.49. And that's what this looks like. It's actually a decent cut of salmon. Now you can also go to your fish case and have your butcher chop you a fresh piece of salmon, which is a little more expensive. As I say, this is probably $1, $1.50. This cut right here is probably about $3. Okay, now what we're going to do, I'm going to cook both of them so you can judge for yourself. We're going to rinse them off first of all. We're going to make sure they're clean. Okay, then after you rinse them off, we're going to marinate them. Now, the marinade I use, since I'm big on low salt, I use a marinade. There's a couple of different brands out on the market that have absolutely no salt. This is mesquite flavor, so I like that. And before I put the mesquite on, what I want to do first is I'm going to poke some holes in the salmon. That way, when you pour the marinade on top, it will soak into the salmon. Your salmon will be that much more moist. And for a little bit additional seasoning, adobo seasoning. I think this is pretty good. It has a little bit of salt, but it also has garlic and oregano. And it really kind of brings out the flavor. So I'm going to pour a little bit of this over the salmon. And then we're going to put the salmon in a container. And we're going to pour the marinade over it. There. And once you do that, make sure to just kind of take your fingers and make sure you have the marinade is covering or coating all of the salmon. And what I usually do is I'll turn the salmon over so that it will really coat it properly. Okay, now after we do that, we're going to cover it back up. We're going to put it in the refrigerator. Now this marinade that I use is about 10 minutes. However, I like 10, 20, maybe 30 minutes. So we're going to put this in the refrigerator, and in the meantime, while this is marinating, I'm going to prepare the sauteed spinach and the brown rice. Now, while the salmon is marinating in the refrigerator, we're going to go ahead and get started on the sauteed spinach. You're going to need some spinach. You can use a bag of spinach that's already cut and cleaned, or you can use you can get the fresh spinach, clean it, and if you like, cut the stems off. Otherwise, go ahead and put your spinach in a colander so you can wash it off real good. Just put it in some water. Make sure you get it clean, because even though they say it's pre-washed, you might want to go ahead and just be on the safe side and wash it again yourself. Now, we'll just go ahead and put this on the side for now, and we're also going to start the skillet. And what you want to use is you want to use a nice big saute skillet. And we're going to turn the fire on low so we can preheat that. While that's preheating, we're also going to need, again, like Dina and I discussed, sometimes it's good to use regular seasoning, but then also sometimes it's really good to use fresh. Fresh garlic not only tastes good and smells good, it has a lot of health benefits. So get a fresh garlic clove. We're also going to need an onion for this, a whole lemon, and olive oil. We also want some cracked black pepper. Now, if you really choose not to use the fresh lemon, you can use lemon pepper seasoning. But again, I prefer to use the fresh lemon. So what you can do is you take the garlic, you're going to peel it. You know, a lot of people don't like working with garlic, but just break it in half like that. You're going to take a clove, you're going to peel off the top, and then you're going to peel off all of these little coverings on the side until you have a nice fresh garlic clove. Okay, and what I recommend doing is, since it does take a little bit of time to clean and cut the garlic, I recommend you go ahead and do that ahead of time. See, here's the nice fresh piece of garlic. And what you're going to do, you're going to take the garlic and you're going to chop it. You're going to chop it based on how you like it. You can do big chunks, or you can chop it into tiny chunks. It's all a matter of preference. If you mince it, which is really small, some say that that actually gives more flavor. I actually like it, but again, if you don't want to sit here and chop them all up into little bitty pieces, just cut big pieces, and if you have a food processor or some other type of vegetable cutting device, you can put them in there. And I recommend chopping up the garlic ahead of time, putting them in a cup like so, and storing them in the refrigerator with an airtight lid. Now we have our garlic chopped. After we chop our garlic, we're going to want to chop an onion. I like to use a white onion for this particular dish. So just take the onion, cut it, peel the side off. Some people like to rinse their onion before using it. I really don't. So I'm just going to go ahead and chop a few basic slices, nothing fancy, like so. And then just chop them again in the middle and sideways. And actually, I like to have pretty good size. Since we have them chopped, what we want to do now is come to our saute pan. It's already been heating up, so it should be nice and hot. We're going to pour a little bit of olive oil in it. Actually, probably a couple tablespoons. Then we're going to pour a little bit of garlic in. Depends on how much garlic you like. Some people like a lot of garlic, some people don't. I like a lot of garlic, so put a little bit in. You can hear that. And garlic, there's nothing like garlic sauteing in the skillet. That's the best smell. Now we're going to get a little wooden spoon. I like to use a wooden spoon. We're going to turn our fire down a little bit because it's getting kind of hot. I like to use a wooden spoon in the saute pan so that you don't tear up the skillet. Now, we want to get a little bit of aroma going before we put our spinach in. You can't smell it, but it's at that time. I'm smelling the onions, I'm smelling the garlic. And also, we don't want the onions to get brown, which they're starting to do. So what we want to do now is go ahead, get our fresh spinach, just pour it in. We're going to make sure the fire is low because we want to saute it. We don't want to fry it. And then stir gently. And while that's sauteing, again, you can either use the lemon pepper and sprinkle it over. I prefer fresh. And so what we are going to do is, since it's lemon pepper sauteed spinach, we're going to cut this lemon in half. And we really don't want to use the whole lemon because it may be just a little too, might have too much of a acidic taste if you use too much. So we're just going to pour a little bit around on top of the spinach. Then for the pepper, we're going to get cracked black pepper. I like it fresh because if you use the peppercorns, once you grind them, it's going to release a lot more flavor than if you just use regular pepper. So we're going to grind the pepper over the spinach leaves, and then we're going to continue to gently stir. Now, as Dean was telling you in her episode, some people like their greens very well done. I like mine a little with a little bit of texture. So I don't want them overcooked. I just want them gently cooked. So now, as we're gonna let the spinach continue sauteing, and then we're going to cook some brown rice to go with our salmon. Now, I'm using brown rice, but you might want to use sliced potatoes or white rice or pasta. Okay, next we're going to put our brown rice on. I like to use either chicken broth or chicken stock, either low sodium chicken broth or no salt chicken stock. And we're going to pour this in here. We're going to use our own seasoning in order to season it. So we don't want to have that extra salt that comes with the broth. So we pour about, we're going to make about, we're going to boil a cup of rice. So for a cup of rice, we need 2 cups of liquid. So I just put 2 cups of chicken broth in there. Now I'm going to put a cup of brown rice. And then after I put the brown rice in, I'm going to add a bunch of herbs and spices. You can use what you like, something that suits your taste. But what I like to use is a little bit of Italian seasoning. I like the grinder kinds. Again, when you use the grinder, it's whole herbs and spices. When you grind it, it cuts it and releases the flavor. So you get a lot more flavor when you use this type of spice. Next, we're going to put some onion powder, some garlic powder, and I'm using probably about a teaspoon of each, but again, you can season to suit your taste. We're also going to use a little bit of cayenne red pepper, just a little bit of that though, otherwise it might be a little too hot for you. And we're also going to use a little bit of salt. We're going to use some sea salt. I like to use, again, the grinder. It's crystals. Once you grind it, it releases a lot more flavor. Now, unlike in some of the other things that I've cooked where I use all fresh vegetables, we could use fresh vegetables for the rice as well. I could chop up fresh garlic, onions, and peppers. But this is a quicker way to do your rice, and it still tastes as good. Now, with brown rice, it has to cook a while. So now that we have all of our seasonings in, except I forgot one more thing. We're going to add a little bit of olive oil, about 2 tablespoons. There. Now, we're going to cover it. We're going to simmer it, so we want it on the lowest possible fire, so it can simmer, and it should simmer for about 45 minutes. While that's simmering, we're going to go ahead and prepare our salmon. So let me go to the fridge, get our salmon out that's been marinating all this time. So it should be nice and moist and tender and flavorful. And what I like to do is I'm going to put it on a pan. I like to put a piece of foil on top of the pan. That way you don't get all of that. Okay, so now we're going to get our salmon out. It's nice and coated. Just place it. Now, because generally I get the fresh salmon or even the $1.49 or the dollar salmon that I suggested you could get. I like the kind that still has the skin on the back. So we're going to put the skin on the back, have the meat on top, place it in the pan, and we have our broiler heated. So what we're going to do, I'm going to place it in the broiler, and salmon should cook takes about 5 to 10 minutes, depending on the thickness of the cut. It shouldn't be any more than 10 minutes if it's about 1 inch thick. These pieces are probably ½ an inch, so 5 minutes should do. We'll put it right under the broiler and let that cook. Okay, our salmon's just about done, so I'm going to take some of this garlic sea salt grinder, grind it into a little dish, and then I'm going to take some olive oil, put it in the dish with it. I'm going to take a basting brush, then you're going to mix the garlic sea salt mixture with the olive oil. Okay, you're going to take your basting brush and coat the top of the meat, like so. And the size. It's good to get the size as well. That way it's going to be really moist and tender. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and put it back in for a couple. Okay. Now, once you take it out the broiler, you can just take it off the foil and place it on your plate, like so. Voila.